this thread, Anons post paragraphs that they come across, let's just say, various articles and books and other sources of information. So all of these aren't actually a consistent story. It's going to be treated more like independent stories that make up one large thought process, I guess. AKA, I'm going to treat this like a mini compilation, even though it's just the same thread, talking about pretty much the same theory. So, definitely grab your tinfoil, and let's get comfy. Deep underground military bases and quote-unquote alien abductions. These above top-secret deep-level underground bases are used for trauma-based mind control and Monarch programming, experimental programming, genetic and other human experimentation, military, Illuminati, and New World Order technology development, including advanced weapons and advanced anti-gravity crafts, the highest level scientific and paranormal experiments, military abductions, black ops, child and human trafficking, assay and torture, breeding programs, and other terrible things. There exists a huge network of maglev tube shuttle connections under the United States, which extends into a global system of tunnels and underground bases in cities. They are basically whole cities underground. They are all between 2.66 and 4.25 cubic miles in size. They have laser drilling machines that can drill a tunnel 7 miles long in one day. I was involved in building an addition to the deep underground military base at Dulce, which is probably the deepest base. It goes down 7 levels and over 2.5 miles deep. I helped hollow out more than 13 deep underground military bases in the United States. Much of this Black Ops drug money is being used to fund projects classified above top secret. These projects include the building and maintaining of deep-level underground bases, such as the Chrysanthemum Underground Biogenetics Facility in Dulce, New Mexico, Pine Gap in Australia, Brecon Beacons in Wales, Snowy Mountains in Australia, the Nyala Range in Africa, west of Kindu in Africa, next to the Libyan border in Egypt, Mount Blanc in Switzerland, Narvik in Scandinavia, Gotland Island in Sweden. There are at least 1,400 of these DUMBs worldwide, abbreviated as DUMBS. There's 131 in the US, with 2 underground bases being built per year in the US at the moment. The average depth of the bases are 4.25 miles underground, some shallower and some deeper. The bases are, on average, the size of a medium-sized city. Each DUM costs between $17 and $26 billion to build, which is funded by MI6 and CIA drug money. A nuclear-powered drill is used to dig underground. This drill goes through rock at a tremendous rate and literally melts the rock away to form a smooth glass-like surface around the edges of the tunnels. I discovered that not only was our government focused on building deep secret cities, but the Illuminati families were also. Furthermore, they were using technology that the public was unaware that existed. The idea behind it all was to create safe and secret places for themselves. Witnesses have described elevators going miles down, super fast trains, backup government agencies, genetic experiments, warehouses of stockpiled materials, and a non-human human hybrid project. But what continues to haunt me was the look that one eyewitness gave me when he said, "Fritz, you don't have a clue. What is going on is beyond all you have thought of." And after that, there was a stone-faced mask on his countenance. Most of these underground bases are funded by the black budget and non-appropriated funds. Intelligence agencies run the global drug trade. Where's this money coming from? It's not coming from our regular black op budget. It's coming from the illegal sale of drugs. In the United States, there's at least, by conservative estimates, $250 billion to $500 billion of illegal drugs just sold in the United States that goes directly into underground budgets, and 90 to 95% of that goes to the DUMBs. Black Ops budget is $500 billion per year, a quarter of the US gross national product. Black budget is not monitored by Congress. It's an independent taxing body, but is mainly financed by drug operations by the CIA, NSA, and the Drug Enforcement Administration, and also the FBI more recently. An FBI man tried to tell the public about this and was murdered in January of 1995. Project Mannequin was started in 1972 and is still being run from a 6-level underground facility beneath the small town of Peasemore in Berkshire, a few miles from where I grew up. Also, the CLC-1 base under Westminster in London, and connected to a large base under Parliament. The Monsoon 1 facility under RAF Lakenheath, 90 miles north of London, and the underground facility below the Porton Down Biowarfare Facility in Wiltshire. This underground base is so secret that the local residents of Peasemore are not even aware it exists. This NSA facility, known in intelligence circles as the AL/499 base, is located 200 feet below the village. There are entrances to the facility at Greenham Common, known as Bravo Entrance, which is now sealed off, Watchfield Military Science College, the Delta Entrance, and Harwell Laboratories in Oxfordshire. There are also entrances to the base in Lambourne and Welford in Berkshire. The underground base at Lambourne is the Area 51 of the UK, with many exotic anti-gravity aircraft stored there. Many of these underground facilities are equipped with advanced technology used to program slaves and soldiers, especially quote-unquote super soldiers. All Black Ops and Delta and etc. soldiers are highly programmed. High-tech programming is used along with the blood rituals and extreme mind-splitting traumas, utilizing trip seats, modified sensory deprivation tanks, advanced virtual reality and holograms, harmonics, various surgical and medical alterations, implants and microchips, brainwave scanning, machines used to program in specific beliefs and responses, and a number of other sophisticated electronic hardware-based hypnosis machines. One of the largest research centers for experimental programming is on the west coast of the United States. The large research facility is underground and is combined with sophisticated military laboratory research. Another one is in East Berlin, and another one is in Prague in Europe, and yet another one exists in Rome. Trapdoor Genetics Facility below SAS Training Ground in Brecon Beacons. You can consider it the UK version of the Dulce base in New Mexico. The man who showed me around the facility at Brecon in 2006 told me the following: when you're traumatized, you develop intuitive abilities. During my trip to the USA at age 6, I was also transported to Dulce, home of the Frankenstein lab purpose-built for Colonel Lewis West, Lieutenant Colonel Michael Aquino, and John W. Gettinger, who were trained directly by Operation Paperclip's most clandestine recruit, Joseph Mengele. Lab technicians strapped my naked body to a chair, plastered large electrode pads to my back and limbs, and attached a Medusa mass of EEG electrodes to my head. My brain splits were color-labeled: green, blue, red, white, and yellow. Dr. West was codenamed Dr. White. He held a large sheet of colored card in my face, while a computer repeated the name of the color: red, 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 red. I was simultaneously electrocuted until my senses were overwhelmed, and I surrendered my will to the insertion of their instruction. They stopped torturing me once they recognized the desired brainwave pattern on their monitors. Mount Shasta, California. Underground facilities around this huge mountain in the Lake Shasta area are putting out Monarch programming that makes the people think that they're in communication with aliens. This facility is for torturing and reprogramming captured runaway Monarch slaves. People are brought into the area via helicopter, plane, or even flying saucer. This site is probably the largest mind-controlled programming center. It's in a wooded remote area, and it's heavily guarded, has fences, and a large contingent of black helicopters. Mount Shasta is equipped with state-of-the-art high-tech programming equipment. Mind-controlled slaves who are soldiers are programmed and trained at the Mount Shasta facility. Shefflin and Opton wrote The Mind Manipulators, based on the Freedom of Information release of 10,000 pages of CIA MK Ultra related documents. A memorandum dated January 14, 1953, titled Interrogation Techniques, states, "If the services of Major Lewis West, a trained hypnotist, can be obtained, and another man, blank, well grounded in conventional psychological interrogation and polygraph techniques, and the services of Lieutenant Colonel blank, a well-balanced interrogation research center could be established in an especially selected location." I am certain one of the names deleted from this document was Lieutenant Colonel Michael Aquino. The other omitted name could have been John C. Lilly, but I believe it was John W. Ginninger. In any case, all three collaborated with Major Lewis West at the Interrogation Research Center described in the proposal for MK Ultra Subproject 43. A unique laboratory must be organized and constructed. This laboratory will include a special chamber in which all psychologically significant aspects of the environment can be controlled. This chamber will contain, among other things, a broad-spectrum polygraph for simultaneous recordings of a variety of psychophysiological reactions of the individual being studied. In this setting, the various hypnotic, pharmacologic, and sensory environmental variables will be manipulated in a controlled fashion, and quantitative continuous recording of the reactions of the experimental subjects will be made. A Frankenstein laboratory fitting this description was built with an underground military base located in New Mexico. Interrogation means torture. The documents refer to using drops, hypnosis, sensory deprivation, and torture, all on children. The laboratory contained an upright version of John C. Lilly's sensory deprivation tank. During the 1950s, the CIA funded John Lilly's development of the sensory deprivation tank and his research into brainwaves and altered states of consciousness. In his book, Programming and Metaprogramming in the Human Biocomputer, Lilly blatantly explained how children are programmed using LSD, along with his sensory deprivation tank and implicit learning via classical and operant conditioning. Lilly compared the human mind to a biocomputer installed with programs that can be erased, modified, and created. We are all born with programs like eating, sleeping, and feeling pain ingrained in our genetic code. Metaprogramming, though, is our ability to learn new information and develop ideas beyond these innate programs. Joseph Mengele laid my core programming during that Canberra trip in a lab beneath the U.S. Embassy. The embassy was staffed with CIA pedophiles and hosted VIP pedophile orgies, like nearby Parliament House. A tunnel system existed beneath the U.S. Embassy, in which some of my abuse occurred. I was left naked and alone in a cage, built into the side of a dark underground cave. I lost track of time, but I might have been left there for 3 days. I was subsequently tortured in a lab by Mengele and his assistants. Mornington Crescent, that London Underground tube station which has been closed since whenever, contains the entrances to British intelligence tunnels to Illuminati HQ. This is where they all go to perform their satanic rites, not just World War II secret bunkers. There's also a tunnel under the Thames from MI6 to the Houses of Parliament. Underneath the Royal Observatory, upon Greenwich Hill, is a large military base accessible by a trapdoor. Within the observatory, or the Queen Anne's colonnaded house, next to Queen Anne's Garden, people have been abducted, tortured, and murdered down there for many decades now, and upon Prince Philip's orders, not to mention the child sacrifice that goes on down there. There's a large underground facility located in Czechoslovakia. This facility has numerous altars within it, where sacrifices are done continuously, day and night, for the spiritual empowerment of the project. This facility is equipped with high-tech equipment. The people running the AL/499 facility in Berkshire and the connected underground bases are a hardline military regime that is ultimately a religious cult centered around the corrupt Zionists. These places are religious centers where so-called black magic rites are performed. Ancient deities are worshipped, and children are trained and sacrificed. The New Mormon Temple has an extremely high-tech underground tunnel facility for programming built underneath it. Witnesses have collaborated their testimony on this high-tech programming site under the Portland Mormon Temple. Although building plans are to be public information, the city of Lake Oswego makes it very difficult to view the temple's building plans. The plans show that the foundation walls are far thicker than any conceivable earthquake would ever call for. The reason is that the foundation helps house an underground arena for the Illuminati and their guests to watch perverse shows. 3 separate Monarch slaves independently describe this underground installation, and in order to gain access to the underground programming tunnels, a person has to place their palm on the wall, where some disguised instrument identifies a person's hand. One is from the Temple Landra building, south of the temple, and another is from the hotel, also south of the temple. He told me that the Trinity Mountain Underground Complex was a top-secret facility that no one is supposed to know about. Controversial things occur at this site that the people would not understand. He told me that I would be acting as a guard for a ceremony that was to be taking place there that night, in one of the secret chambers under the earth. I would be placed in a guard detail over a satanic cannibalistic ceremony involving the consumption of newly born babies deep in the top-secret underground government complex. I would receive a severe head injury while on the security detail when another of the guards would break from his programming, and being unable to cope with what he had witnessed, he had planned on killing everyone in the ceremony. The New World Order relies on these secret bases, along with the technology developed in them, and their sophisticated mind control technology for their plans. Most people, including most of the so-called patriots, are sincere about defeating the New World Order, but they are really looking in the wrong direction. They need to uncover, expose, and alert the people of the world what's going on below the Earth's surface. What if you were to realize that Canada has over 30 DUMBs, and its neighbor to the south has over 140 active DUMBs? Worldwide, there are now over 1,500 DUMBs. Let us assume all North American DUMBs are connected below by oxygenated maglev trains from Germany and are able to reach Mach 2 with having the tunnels vacuumed of air to eliminate air resistance. Do you know that more than 3,000 people have been killed for trying to talk about what goes on in these underground bases? It's basically a death sentence when you start getting too close to the nerve center of the real New World Order's plans. The real heart and soul of the New World Order plan lies in the mysterious underground military bases scattered all over the world. In the United States, approximately 140 of these dumb bases exist. A geologist friend of this author who helped build these dumb bases, Phil Schneider, gave his life to get the truth out of the American people. He was a programmed multiple of the Illuminati, and some of his alters knew it. These underground bases play a vital role in the entire mind control network. There also exist massive underground cities and areas, fully equipped and stocked for harboring a large amount of people for a long time. I'm primarily using the term slab, because this is what they use to describe the town area and what the town area sits on. Each town area was their own slab. This is taken from the fact that the cave area was open and huge, maybe the size of Chicago or New York, and they divided it up and floored it off. 3 football fields long and 6 wide was the size of the slab. The whole opening was divided up into approximately 10 slabs. This, I'll assume, when taken into that, is probably the size of Chicago or New York. The reason I keep calling the area that we were in a slab is because that's what they called it, and that name stuck. There were many slabs that had X amount of homes in it. Outside of the home, it was very spacious, and wasn't cramped even slightly. It was like being anywhere in the US, but just dark, of course, because you were underground. One thing that was a little strange was that It was like your ears were hearing a hollowed out kind of sound. Very strange. It's something you would have to experience. It wasn't noise or a sound, kind of like empty/filled air all around you. Also, most of the houses were empty. They were owned in full, but it wasn't like people went there on family vacations to hang out. We were only there because my dad's friend needed them at the time. They have the ability to stay underground for centuries, probably till the point that they would come out eventually looking something far from us today. A big function of these bases and underground laboratories is genetic research, and every conceivable type of human experimentation, including modified humans, chimera creation, and any and all types of tests and experiments on slaves and embryos. There exist many extremely horrific underground breeding programs in these facilities. Many survivors have also talked about the rows and rows of cages holding humans for terrible experiments and rituals at many of these underground bases. Via molecular biology and genetics, humanoids that are vastly different from normal humans have been created in secret underground installations. They have been modifying humans to design parahumans, and then applying mind control to them. K. Griggs stated the military is cloning humans, and that is correct. I saw human cloning being conducted at Dulce and Pine Gap. The bodies are grown to full form in giant test tubes, just like in the propaganda film The Sixth Day. When I was 6 years old, Gettinger showed me a massive clone army of super soldiers assembled like stormtroopers on the floor of a 3-story high auditorium carved beneath Pine Gap. They looked 7 feet tall, were dressed in black Nazi-style uniforms, and lacked male genitalia. Gettinger told me to take a look at the genitalia of one of them, and it looked like a Ken doll. A fleet of UFOs with NASA stamped on their shell were stored on an underground conveyor belt system at Pine Gap. A great deal of secret experimentation has gone on in underground installations with genetics. This author has had the privilege of debriefing someone who worked at the Area 51 underground installation. He was murdered after having had several long interviews with this author. Truth is stranger than fiction. It goes without saying that the Illuminati has gathered up every harebrained idea for controlling and manipulating the human race. That doesn't mean every one of them has been attempted, but they have the means to carry out very bizarre experiments in their underground facilities, such as the ones at Area 51. There is no question that they have tried to augment natural human features and replace natural human parts. Who knows what weird transgenetic or cybernetic beings have been created? This author knows that they have been successful in some of their work at reshaping humans. This author has accumulated a great deal of information on the underground installations from eyewitnesses, but there is no way of knowing what is accurate and what is disinformation. However, a few details are definite. These underground installations are massive, and they involve genetic manipulation to create new species or breed special types of people. The NWO has been secretly creating chimeras. Chimeras is the widely used name for beastmen. This research is generally not for the public to see, but is done in some of the underground facilities listed in Appendix 2. An example would be a creature that was half human and half some other beast. The mind control aspects of my abuse mainly occurred at laboratories in Sydney University, along with Halsworthy Army Base, Lucas Heights Nuclear Reactor, and Pine Gap. Halsworthy Army Base sits adjacent to Lucas Heights Nuclear Reactor, now called ANSTO, Australian Nuclear Science and Technology Organization. Lucas Heights Nuclear Reactor is a 20-story underground research facility that was connected via underground tunnel to another 7-story underground research facility at Halsworthy Army Base. Data and material collected from these labs were delivered to Australia's main CIA and U.S. military underground facility at Pine Gap. Halsworthy and Lucas Heights both featured underground rooms dedicated to Luciferian ritual and the worship of their ancient deity, Dagon. All top Australian military brass were Luciferians. Most Sydney University staff were also Luciferians. The elite Jason scientists operated out of Dulce in the USA and Pine Gap in Australia. DNA and reproductive materials collected from child victims at the CIA research facility at Anstow were stored in liquid nitrogen flasks and transported to Pine Gap for use in the Jason Super Soldier genetic engineering project. Area 51 is also known as Dreamland or Groom Lake. There are a number of extensive underground facilities in the area. This was one of the first genetic research facilities in the US, and perhaps the first major genetic research facility. The people or workers and the victims are brought in by airplane and tube shuttle. The worst cases of UFO and alien type of Monarch programming are coming out of Area 51. The eggs from slaves are being harvested, and weird genetic creatures are being developed from the human eggs, which have been genetically mixed with other things. A security officer, Barry King, witnessed many of the strange things that I saw on Project Mannequin. Small military biorobots that are part machine and part organic, known as PLF, or Programmable Life Forms. These are short, gray-colored beings used for many projects. The PLFs are developed in 3 stages, and each stage has its own section in the base. There are up to 500 stored at any one time, and these are used in the AL-499 and also shipped to various military bases in this country and overseas. The development between stages is rapid and is approximately 3 months. Depending on what the PLFs are being used for, they have 3 fingers and a thumb, and some have 4 fingers and a thumb. The basic MK Delta model was a mind-controlled human whose abilities were enhanced through hypnosis, drugs, sensory deprivation, esoteric means, and etc. Another model had abilities enhanced through biochipping, bionics, and genetic modification using animal DNA. Many national parks and Indian reservations are used for these above top-secret underground facilities. There is an extensive underground CIA/Nazi/NWO base in Glacier National Park, Montana, which connects to Canada. Hidden high atop the mountainside along Going to the Sun Road is the secret tunnel entrance to an extensive underground Nazi CIA facility. The secret tunnel descends more than 2 miles to a giant hollowed-out industrial complex below the mountain. This huge underground city and base connects Montana to Canada just north of the national border at the cleverly named International Peace Park. This underground base is where the CIA keeps its stolen Holocaust trillions and tests its most secret New World Order black projects, including Tesla's flying disc, optically invisible aircraft, and other stolen Tesla technologies. Operations at the base include maintenance and deployment of stealth drones. Glacier National Park was the first national park to have railroad access at the time, a necessity for all large-scale underground military-industrial construction. This enabled them to transport the rumored Nazi gold train of stolen Holocaust loot from Montauk, New York, to the secret base located inside the mountain. Above the secret tunnel entrance, there's a strange-looking outcropping of rocks that at certain times of the day looks like a grizzly bear, hence the name Grizzly Peak. The CIA uses this secret tunnel route to illegally smuggle drugs, guns, SS Nazi war criminals, and dignitaries into Canada without stopping at any border crossings. The secret tunnel entrance to the underground base is hidden behind a remote-controlled movable rock wall located in the side of the mountain on Going to the Sun Road, just north of Grizzly Peak and the Weeping Wall. The tunnel entrance was cut out of the bedrock by precision laser to prevent any possible discovery. When the base is active during the summer months, there are armed and camouflaged guards hiding on the mountainside, surrounding the secret tunnel entrance. The Nazi New World Order keeps its stolen Holocaust trillions and stolen Tesla technology secretly hidden inside this hollowed-out mountain facility, providing access only to the New World Order elite. The CIA Nazis use stolen Tesla technology to create artificial anti-gravity fields around Glacier National Park the nearby Blackfoot Indian Reservation, and many other locations throughout the world. There are hundreds of satellites orbiting the Earth that project high-intensity positively charged laser beams to certain areas on the Earth. The New World Order Nazis use these beams not only as weapons, but also to transmit power to levitating aircraft, flying discs, and various other stolen Tesla technologies. The absorptive properties of the levitating aircraft allow their utilization of energy beamed from orbital plasma generators, optimally transmitted when the stealth aircraft are themselves plasma cloaked for optical and radar invisibility, giving off only infrared light. A hazardous byproduct of these space-based laser beams is radon gas. Radon is said to be an invisible gas that causes cancer and leukemia in humans and animals. But if you ask the US government about radon gas, you will not get a straight answer. Native Americans on the nearby Blackfoot Reservation have suffered from extremely high rates of cancer and leukemia since the 1950s. The US government says that nothing is wrong and there is no reason to be concerned, yet suffering communities must be informed of the true cause of their severe ailments. Okay, this last one, for some reason, is written as 200 feet in the context of the story. It makes no sense, but that's just what it says. I don't know if it means 200 miles or if it meant to say 2,000 feet, but it brings it up multiple times and I type it the same each time. So anyway, here's why I'm confused. The SR-71 Blackbird, B-2 stealth bomber planes, and anti-gravity flying discs are constantly hovering just below 200 feet in the skies above Glacier National Park and the Blackfoot Indian Reservation. This explains why commercial flights are forbidden to fly below 200 feet in Glacier National Park, and why no one is allowed to bring firearms into the park for protection against the aggressions of the resident grizzly bears. There are many more secret CIA bases at other national parks around the country, including the Grand Canyon. These planes are optically invisible and make no audible sound at all. The SR-71 are periodically brought into the secret underground hangars, located in the hollowed-out mountain below Grizzly Peak, on Going to the Sun Road. These levitating airplanes are slowly lowered into the waters of Lake McDonald in Glacier National Park. The planes are capable of traveling underwater like submarines for short distances. Once the planes are submerged into Lake McDonald, they travel to the underground/underwater hangars inside the hollowed-out mountain. Once inside, the planes are serviced. There is a giant elevator inside the mountain that brings the planes up to a full-size hidden runway inside the mountain. During the night, when Going to the Sun Road is closed, a large camouflaged section of the mountain is briefly opened up for aircraft to exit the facility. Once the plane has left the mountain base, the secret runway bay doors are closed.